Come on, this game sucked. The Binding of Isaac is one of the most beloved roguelikes ever made. It's a pioneer of the genre, but I do not recommend you play it at this point in time. I'll give you a second to stop fuming before I explain my logic. Now that everyone's calm, the first thing I feel I should do is I should explain what the Binding of Isaac is. The Binding of Isaac is a roguelike game where the idea is to proceed through the levels by defeating bosses. Each floor has a random layout with a random number of rooms, and in each room you're either going to find enemies, items, shops, or random events. The goal on each floor is to either go as fast as you can to the boss or to find as many possible power-ups on the floor as possible. The main trade-off to this is, do you want to go right to the boss, or do you want to risk going into more areas and powering up first? On paper, the idea is actually incredibly simple, but there is a lot of luck involved based on the procedurally generated layouts you'll encounter and what random loot you'll find. And now that you have a better understanding of the game, we're going to go into the first reason I do not think you should buy it at this point: the game's age. Yeah, it's kind of unfair to heart a game based on it being older, but this game released in 2014. And you know what the difference between a game now and the game released in 2014 is? It's not the graphics and it's not the gameplay. It's the jank. What do I mean by the jank? Well, the biggest thing that comes to my mind is the way the game controls. Now, I'm playing the game on PC, which means that I'm using the WASD keys to move and then the arrow keys to shoot. Who came up with that control scheme? That has to be one of the worst control schemes I've ever seen. And before you comment about it, no, I haven't played the controller version. That defeats the point. And this is exactly what I mean when we're talking about age. In 2014, for a game like this, that might have been a great way to do it. But in 2024, what's wrong with using a mouse? I want to compare it for a second to the most similar roguelike I could think of, which is Enter the Gungeon. In Enter the Gungeon, the base gameplay is very similar. You're going through floors, going for a boss, and you got to take the risk or reward decision of either going for more loot, or do you want to go right for the boss and not take the risk of taking damage and dying? In Enter the Gungeon, you control your character with the WSAD, and you use the mouse to aim and fire. And given the newer design philosophy of the game, you also have a dedicated dodge button, and you could use other mechanics like flipping tables into cover to give yourself more protection. Just as a newer game, it has a little more of a feature set and a better control scheme that help. And just another note that The Binding of Isaac is actually a game that is very difficult to understand. Now, I do find that The Binding of Isaac, it will kind of tell you what some of the effects are, but with a lot of items, you actually don't know if it's worth picking up or it's useful up until the point that it has become too late, especially when you start to find like the random pill items in the game. You never know if they're actually going to aid you or hurt you. Whereas maybe this is a game feature, but in some of the newer games, it is a lot more obvious whether an item is detrimental or beneficial. I'll get into more about comparison between games later on. But if you're enjoying the video so far, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. But moving on, because the second thing I want to talk about is the difference between luck and skill in roguelikes. Now, the easiest way to describe that is I'm going to show you guys a table here, 2x2, of high luck versus low luck and high skill versus low skill. What does that mean? In any roguelike, you're always going to have a modicum of luck and a level of skill required to beat it. Some games require very high luck and low skill. Some games require the other way around. One of my biggest issues with The Binding of Isaac is the game feels like, to me, it requires an incredibly lucky set of conditions in order for you to win, such as getting easier bosses, better power-up, or even just having luck in finding items like bombs. Whereas if you look at other games such as Hades 2 or Dead Cell, these games do not have that level required. You could win in any of these games. The ideal roguelike would probably, in my opinion, be middle tier luck, even though that's not on the table, I'm just going to use it, and high skill. Why do I like high skill? Because when a game requires you to have high skill in order to do well in the game, I personally feel it's the most rewarding experience you could have. And think about it this way. From a gameplay perspective, your skill, experience, and time dedicated to the game actually matter. If it's high luck luck, low skill, then it doesn't matter how much of a game you've played. You're always going to be dependent on a factor which you cannot control. So just based on this alone, given the fact that I would put The Binding of Isaac at high luck and low skill, that makes me not want to recommend the game to people when there are games that are high skill, low luck available. Hell, I'd even take some of the deck building roguelikes that are high skill and high luck. Look at a game like Slay the Spire, where you have to have the game knowledge, which I'm equating to skill, but you also have to be lucky enough to get the cards that you need for your build. And my comparisons are going to lead us to the third point. We cannot look at this game in a vacuum. You want to know what I mean by this? When I talk about reviewing a game in a vacuum, what we're doing is we're just looking at the merits of the game. And we've already determined on its own, I probably wouldn't recommend it. But The Binding of Isaac is not the only roguelite on the market. There are so many good roguelite games that are out there. And there are even more great roguelite games coming. And in fact, the genre is growing so much that many AAA games are actually starting to create roguelikes. We just have to look at God of War Ragnarok Valhalla or even League of Legends Swarm Mode. So one of the biggest factors we have to consider is something called opportunity cost. If you're spending time playing a suboptimal game, then that is time that you are spending not doing something that is giving you better value to your time. When you're looking at a market that has amazing games like Balatro, Risk of Rain, Dead Cells, Hades, it just makes me question, why would you want to play something that isn't as good? And it's not even a factor of age. If I had to pick between Enter the Gungeon and The Binding of Isaac, the two games that I would consider the closest, I would still take Enter the Gungeon over The Binding of Isaac. Now, in an absolute vacuum, whether it's a situation of you're gonna sit there bored, doing absolutely nothing, just sitting around, or you could play The Binding of Isaac, yeah, I'd say go play The Binding of Isaac. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it as a game. It's a fully functioning product that still has entertainment value. I've been playing quite a bit more of it to record this video, and while I don't think it's as fun as other roguelikes that I've been playing, notice how I didn't include it in the 5 roguelikes you need to play, I still don't think it's an awful game. But there are just so many better alternatives that are on the market that I feel it's very hard to recommend this game. So basically, is there anything wrong with The Binding of Isaac? No. Is The Binding of Isaac a bad game? No. Would I consider it one of the greatest roguelikes of all time? Absolutely not. There is way too much luck involved, and there is definitely a factor of recency bias, as I've got into the genre a lot later than The Binding of Isaac was one of the biggest games. These was probably the first game in the genre that actually got me to like roguelikes. But this video is for people who have not played the game yet. If you played The Binding of Isaac many years ago, still love the game, still think it's incredible, and enjoy it, then why not? Keep playing it. And I just appreciate the fact that you sat through this video of me crapping on your favorite game. If you've never played before, I find it incredibly difficult to recommend the game to somebody who hasn't already played it. Thanks for watching, and I will see everyone in the next video.